Good morning, YouTube. So, that is an oil pump out of F430. In fact, it's out of my buddy Barron's F430. So, it was actually, he brought it in for a clutch job, and then we ended up needing to do the headers because the headers are cracked, and then a bunch of other crap. The oil pump is notorious in this car for leaking, and, well, his is leaking. So, Josh is going to actually reseal this oil pump instead of replacing it, because replacing these things is like in the $4,000+ range. Yeah, it's not good. And resealing it, probably
maybe $1,000.
Yeah, so
maybe
saving $3,000 sounds good to me.
Yeah, and it's not terribly difficult to do.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
So this here is your basic makeup of the pump. There is a two-piece shaft. You've got a couple collars that slip in here to help keep the shaft isolated. But the basic construction of the pump is you have 3 long studs. And once you take the nylock nuts and washers off, you can slide these apart. And you've got 3 of these housings stacked together. Gear portion of your pump just sits inside the housing like so. You got the collar that rides back here. It helps keep all the internal stuff located. But what leaks is the O-ring. Each one of these halves just has this simple O-ring, just like that, and they stack together and then tighten down. So, like anything, over years, the rubber goes hard and allows oil to leak by. Instead of buying a $4,000 oil pump, went into McMaster Car, which is a really great generic industrial supply website, and bought myself a bag of O-rings of the correct durometer and size. 81 millimeter inner diameter with a 2 millimeter cross section. Shore A durometer 70, regular Buna rubber. And so all we were doing is we pulled all the halves apart, cleaned all the oil out of it, and then
Replace all the O-rings.
yeah, replacing all the O-rings, then stack it back together.
I'm assuming the hard part then is the labor, right?
Correct.
Because you got to get way up in there. In fact, we'll show where it sits on the engine. It's not in the easiest spot to get to.
No, you got to take the motor mount bracket off that side of the engine. You got to drain the coolant and disconnect the thermostat housing, and then slide the pump out. There's also the connecting pipe that goes between the gearbox and the oil pump, so it takes a good bit of time to get the pump out and on the bench. One of the important things to keep mind of when you open up the oil pump, these machine dots here to keep orientation between the 2 rotor pieces. And it's important as you pull it together not to let it just explode all over the bench. You want to carefully take it apart one section at a time, make sure that these 2 pieces stay together and in the correct orientation and go back that way, because they're all machined and assembled and they wear in, you know.
Specific way, yeah.
Yeah. So in essence, you can see I've already got 2 halves already put together. So you got your main shaft here. You can see it's got a couple flats, so it's keyed to the rotor. And O-ring sits in a groove up here.
Yep, there it is.
This side's flat, and you see there's a little bit of a recess. The rotors drop inside the housing, and then you've got a step here. So there's very tight tolerances between the 2. It's a little tricky to get the O-ring in the right position and get it all stacked in. You know, you gotta pay attention to it, but that's it. You've got the O-rings between the 4 housings, and then you've got your O-rings here and here where it mounts to the side of the engine block.
Right.
And so there's several rubber O-ring places for it to link.
Yeah. Lots of leak spots.
Yeah, you can see this one's still a little bit dirty. I haven't finished cleaning it up. Aside from mechanical failure, that was $20 with shipping worth of O-rings. It's not really worth replacing the whole pump unless you have a, you know, mechanical concern.
Right. So this is the underside of the engine, and you can see that right there. Oh, that's nice. There we go. That's where the oil pump sits. So you can see the upper holes bolt there, lower holes bolt here, and so you can see also, like, here's where your thermostat housing is, so that would bolt to it. That's the drive, right? That actually
Correct.
spins it. So to get to it's not super easy. Now, yeah, here's where the motor mount. You know, motor mount's right here. Or the engine mount.
Yeah.
So.
Right now I just have 2 bolts thrown in it so I could take the stand out from underneath it, but I use an underlift stand, pick up the motor and take the arm off and hold the engine in place while I'm pulling the pump in and out. There's an O-ring on the front of the pump where it interfaces here, and there's an O-ring that goes on here as well. So if you're buying pieces and you think you want to do this yourself, there's several O-rings to think about. I don't want to worry about all of them and sizing them out and ordering them all through an industrial supplier. So all of these, which are available from the factory parts catalog, I contacted Ricambi America, ordered my list of O-rings in the correct quantities and had them ship them in. I only went through McMaster to get the pump O-rings because those aren't available through Ferrari.
They don't want you to do that.
No,
They want you to buy a new pump.
absolutely.
Of course. It's probably a non-serviceable item.
Correct. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Or money.
Yeah.
Alright, well, there you have it. So if you want to save a crap load of money, you can actually rebuild these oil pumps. So it's actually an oil water pump. It's actually both, right? And obviously you can see right here, that's where the oil filter goes. Pretty cool to see it sitting out of the car. It's a very unusual design. You don't really see a lot of oil pumps like this.
Here's your here's the water pump portion of it.
Yeah, okay.
So you can see here where it splines and interfaces
yeah,
into
yeah.
the oil pump, and this is where it splines and interfaces
the
into the
engine.
drive, on the front timing cover. I have seen on eBay a couple of rebuild kits for these water pumps as well, so you can disassemble them
Oh.
and rebuild them. Ferrari doesn't sell a rebuild kit.
Yeah,
They
you just
want
buy
you
the
to buy
whole
the
thing.
entire assembly. On the Maseratis, you usually have to do because they don't get serviced real well and they get a lot more mileage, and the water pump portion seizes up badly and strips all the teeth off the spline shaft and turns into a whole mess. So usually when that happens, if the motor isn't damaged due to oil pressure starvation, you have to replace the whole pump anyway.
Alright, so that is the water pump now been separated. So you can see, obviously there's a big old O-ring that actually has kind of a cool pattern.
Yep.
And then obviously mates to that surface there.
So this is just like all the other water pump seals in all of the older Ferraris. It's a two-piece seal with a spring and a ceramic piece here. So as you see, this doesn't move, but the impeller and the shaft spin. So this is a hard ceramic material that just spins against this. And so the coolant helps keep it all lubricated.
Yeah.
And the spring tension keeps it pressed
Dude, it's a
tight.
bellows design.
Yeah.
I used to, the company I used to work for was called Flowserve, and we made mechanical seals.
Really?
And that's a very similar, very basic design of,
Yeah.
of a mechanical seal.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Also, if you look deep inside here, there's a brownish colored radial lip seal.
Okay.
That helps separate the oil from
Yep.
the water pump in addition to this water pump seal. Because here on this side, there's a ball bearing.
Okay, yep, I see it.
The ball bearing rides here on this shaft. It uses the oil that circulates, the engine oil that circulates through the pump also lubricates that bearing.
Okay.
So you've got a oil radial lip seal that keeps the oil on the oil pump side, and then you've got the mechanical water pump seal here that keeps the water on the water pump side, and then you've got a freeze plug in these drain holes. So it looks to me, in addition to the O-rings all weeping, this radial seal in here is also aged out and was allowing oil to bypass and start leaking out through the weep
okay.
holes here.
So we need to replace the lip seal.
Correct. So in order to do that, we'll have to remove the mechanical seal here, and then we can get access to the lip seal
Below
and
it.
pull it out,
Okay.
and then put it all back together.
Very cool.
So once
Again, a lot cheaper than buying a new water pump.
this rebuild kit here is a few $100s, but like we're talking, it's just a little bit of time to do it. Also, it's all still substantially less expensive than the R&R, and then replacing a $3,000-$4,000 pump. I'll order up the rebuild kit for this now, and once it gets in and I've got all the parts here, I'll finish tearing this down and pulling these seals out, because I want to match them up and verify that everything is correct before I destroy these parts.
Yeah.
For obvious reason.
Right. All right, so there you go. Again, saving some money, DIY it. It's pretty badass. Good tips from the pro. Can rebuild those suckers instead of buying a new one and saving thousands of dollars. We're gonna be doing a lot of car stuff. You're gonna want to stay tuned. It's gonna be sweet.